Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Vince Gethings from Tri-City Equity Group. And today we have our guest, Chris Miles, on the show. Chris has been a leading cash flow expert for real estate investors and an anti-financial advisor. Really excited to hear what that is all about. And he became financially independent twice by the time he was 39. So again, he's lived a lot of life by 39, and we're going to hear how he did it. He speaks from experience when teaching real estate investors how quickly to create cash flow and lasting wealth. And on top of all of that, to give some credibility, some street cred, he's been featured on U.S. News, CNN Money, and Bankrate.com, and as well as many other places. And he also has his own show, the Chris Miles Money Show, which we're going to be talking about probably toward the end of this show. But let's get right into it. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, pleasure to be here.
Outstanding. So I want to just jump right in to hear how you retired twice by the time you were 39, when most people, especially today, and even more so in October of 2021, when we're hitting like this crazy hyperinflation where retirement is not going to be a possibility for millions of Americans. How did you do it twice by the time you're 39?
Yeah, pretty much rejecting everything I was taught as a financial advisor, right? It's funny because out of college, I actually dropped out of college to be an entrepreneur because I was going to be a business consultant. Mm-hmm. So the first business opportunity I had come along was being a financial advisor. Little did I know they take anybody off the street that can basically pass a test and have a heartbeat, right? But I love being an entrepreneur. I love having control of my time and my destiny, so to speak. Well, about 4 years into it, even by 3 years or so into it being a financial advisor, which for financial advisors, it's a long time. As I got into it, I started to realize, there's some holes here. I'm seeing that there's evidence of people not retiring, and that's the thing is I like evidence. I like to know that things work. And it wasn't until I had a friend who used to be a financial advisor, and then he left to go do real estate investing with his dad. They partnered up on some deals, started buying some properties, doing flips and things like that. And 4 months later, I decided to call him up. It's the end of 2005. Decided to, wish him Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, right? And I asked him, I said, so Doug, how are things going with the whole real estate thing? He's like, oh man, it's awesome. Like my dad's already doubled his income as being a professor at the local university. I'm like, what? Doubled his income? Come on, that's too good to be true, right? Like we often hear in this space. He's like, no, man, like it's happening. And so we got this debate about what's better, stocks or real estate. And finally, he just stopped me. He said, Chris, how many of your clients are actually financially free where they don't worry about money? And he's like, not just retired, but they don't worry. And I thought about it. I was like, well, I've got some retired physicians and people like that, but they do worry because they watch CNN. And if you watch CNN, you worry about the whole sky is falling, right? So I said, well, none of them are financially free that way. He said, well, good job, Chris. Way to go. Well, he's like, okay, how about this? How many of you guys as financial advisors are financially free? Not off the commissions you're earning, not all the renewals and all that stuff that you're earning, but actually investing in these mutual funds. And I had to think about it for a little bit. And I was like, well, okay, there's guys in my office been working since the late 70s and they're still not financially free. So none, maybe this one guy is. And I found out, as they say in Texas, he was all hat and no cattle, right? Like he was basically all for show. Once he got laid off, he was scrambling for work because he was just, showing a front, right? He was pre-Instagram, right? So in any case, so none of them are financially free. He's like, well, there's your problem. I was like, well, give me the answer. He's like, no, I won't give you the answer because you just got to argue with me that stocks are better. And I was like, listen, I'm open. You got me to admit this. Give me something. He said, if you're really serious about this, go read the book, Who Took My Money by Robert Kiyosaki. It's a lesser known Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. To save you the 3 hours of audiobook, mutual funds suck. Okay. And then he's like, well, listen to this radio show, this AM radio show that these two real estate investors are doing here locally in Utah. And so I started listening to that. And a few months later, I'm like, I can't keep teaching this crap anymore. Like I can't be a financial advisor and stay in integrity knowing that it doesn't work. So I quit March of 06. I said, I'm done. I'll never teach about money again. I will just, go be a mortgage broker and then teach ballroom dancing on the side, because little known fact, I was one of the nation's top amateur ballroom dancers. Right.
Nice.
So I was doing that. But I had to know what these guys knew. It drove me nuts. These guys were in their 20s and 30s and they're financially free. So I started to learn what they did. And a lot of them were doing stuff with real estate and whatnot. Well, later that year, by the summer of 2006, I myself became financially independent. Now granted, I only needed like $3,500 a month to be financially independent back then. I had like, 2 kids, barely 2 young kids at home. I was living dirt cheap. So that was it. I was like, cool. I'm almost 29 years old and I'm financially independent. What am I going to do with my life now? Right. And so 2007, I decided to come out of retirement, teach people how to get out of the rat race, partnered up with some guys that had done it as well. And of course, we're focused on real estate investors. Well, the real estate investors we're focusing on were gamblers. They were just like me, banking on appreciation more than cash flow, because I started going away from the cash flow thing that worked, started banking on appreciation, and then bam, recession hit. Now we're almost bankrupt as a company. Plus our personal lives suck because now our real estate's not paying us because it wasn't paying us really well in the first place. We're trying to just flip it and make money on appreciation. So I went from millionaire to upside down millionaire, right? Mm-hmm. I was over $1 million in debt, had to dig out of that hole. So I was back in the rat race. So I stopped teaching people how to get out of the rat race and instead taught people how to get resourceful because I was doing that. I didn't want to teach something I wasn't doing. So down the road, eventually, through a lot of grit, no bankruptcy, but having to dig out of that hole, that $1 million debt hole, was able to become financially independent again by the end of 2016. And so that's why I did it the second time. Not because I'm amazing, right? Because I screwed up. So I had to do it twice. Once I prefer, right? Just one time and then you're there. But at least I got to prove that I can do it again. And that's what I teach my clients to do today is that very thing.
That's awesome. It's like your own rich dad, poor dad story. It's a lot of similarities there. So before we get into the next topic, so out of that time, going from the high of your first retirement mm-hmm. down to the low, what lessons did you take away from that? What was the learning experience that brought you to like, okay, this I'm not in the trenches, like I'm on a launch pad now. I know what I did wrong. And now the second retirement, the second wave or chapter here is going to be phenomenal. So what did you take away from that first downfall?
Yeah, the biggest thing was you got to focus on the fundamentals, right? You got to focus on the things that work, real principles. I started getting greedy, right? And then patient because, the ambition of my 20s caught up with me in my 30s. Like I was being overly ambitious. I thought I had the Midas touch. So there's a lot of pride and ego going there thinking that, hey, I got this figured out. I'm an amazing investor. But I lost sight of the fundamentals, things like cash flow, right? Like profit, which I know you teach about all the time in multifamily, right? Like mm-hmm. you want to have profit, especially when you stress test those babies. You want to make sure you're still getting paid, Mm-hmm. I didn't do that. I lost sight of that. I did that in the beginning, right? And then when I got there, I'm like, cool. Now see how much money I can make. Let's see if I can make 50 or 100 grand. Let's buy a bigger, higher price property because if it appreciates 10%, I make more money than these small properties, right? So I got greedy, I got stupid and lazy, I also ran up my expenses too. That didn't help either because I was like, hey, I got money coming in like air. So I stopped tracking my money. I stopped looking at it. I just kept, living life, enjoying it, hiring everything out, like had a maid and a housekeeper, or whatever. And, people to mow my lawn for me and all that kind of stuff. Like I was just, I was just living the high life, right? I was just loving it because it seemed like money was always coming in. When it stopped, that's when I realized, it's like when air stops, when you realize you don't have any more air, then you really start to take advantage. You really start to not take air for granted, right? Where right now we're breathing normally, we don't even care, Same thing with money. And so cash flow was everything. It was about doing that. It wasn't about just growth, right? Because the hard thing in the financial advisor mindset, and they always teach you got to accumulate money, stack it up, hoard it like a squirrel, right? So that you can live off your nut someday, right? Mm-hmm. And the problem with that is that, like for example, my whole goal before when I was in my 20s was by the time I was 40, save up enough in mutual funds to live off of $2 million. Because if I could pull off 3% of 2 million, that's 60,000 a year. And I thought back then 60,000 a year was amazing, right? And at $5,000 a month. Now it's like barely over broke for almost everybody, but back then it was like freedom, in my mind. Well, that was the goal I had. I was like, I got to accumulate 2 million, not realizing that, hey, what if I had, money that made me 1% a month even, right? Well, now if I want, say 5,000 a month, Now I need $500,000, not 2 million, $500,000. I can save a quarter, like really 75% less, just 25% of the number that I needed before to hit that same number. It was always about the income and cash flow that comes in. If you focus on that and ignore all should I be debt free or not? And should I save up in all these stupid 401ks, which is a big ripoff anyways, because the match did almost nothing for you. Adds maybe 1 or 2% if you're max funding your 401k. That's it. Even if you get 100% match, it only adds about a 2 to 3% return over time. That sucks, especially when the market's only averaged about, even in the last 30 years, 8.4%. That's the real rate of, not the average they claim, but the real return of the S&P 500, right? So you put it together like, wow, I might make 10%. Where I know with deals that you do, you probably are like easily in the mid-teens. Like you can get an IRR of at least that much, and you get tax advantages where you don't get that in the stock market, right? So all that stuff, like being able to pull it together, and say, okay, let's reject all the traditional stuff. Reject debt-free is good. Reject Dave Ramsey. Reject Susie Ormans of the world and all that kind of crap, and just focus on what works, which is how do I create cash flow, and especially if I get it tax advantaged, then I can save less and be able to create more with it.
Yeah, it's a lot of people have to kind of see that, go through that process themselves. I guess they kind of have their own kind of awakening or something like that to that process. But it is very, very enlightening once you see, and you can it's almost like seeing the Matrix, like, holy crap, this is how it is. And then once you figure it out, of just, they focus on the cash flow and then scale smartly from there. So for the first round here of deals you were doing, were those single family or residential size? Okay.
Yeah, really on the residential side. And even today, I do a lot of residential, even though I do some multifamily as well. Okay. But yeah, it was all residential back then the first time.
Okay, gotcha. And before we move on, one of the points that I noted here was, for me, I get that, and a lot of people do get kind of like that impatientness of it, and then your standards start going down, and you stop double checking and triple checking and stress testing and all these things. And it's really hard when you're the only decision maker. So one thing that I know that's a weakness of me is I want to, move through deals fast. So I just got a partner who's very like black and white, like this, we're going to do this. And now we have that accountability. So whenever we do deals, it's both of us are going to like Swiss cheese each other's underwriting to make sure we've stress tested everything, make sure we're getting 2 eyes on every single aspect of that business plan and that pro forma and that analysis. So that you're not your personal ambitions or whatever, even if it's consciously or unconsciously doing it, you're not lowering your standards of security on deals, or your risk. You're taking on more risk. And that's how we did it in ours. And it's been working out phenomenally. So I partnered up rather than kind of cultivating that, self-discipline and those super strict regiments. I got a partner, and we do everything together when it comes to underwriting and building business plans, stuff like that. So yeah,
that's the key. Like, you get that checks and balances, you learn. I mean, it's sad that it takes the bad experiences to learn the right questions to ask sometimes, and doing your due diligence. But, like you said, like you want to make sure, even if you stress test it, you're still getting paid, because I didn't do that. And I learned I was a horrible property manager too. I that's why if I do, single family or duplexes or fourplexes, like, I'm getting property managers. Like I'm doing it turnkey. I'm not doing the whole hunt it down and try to manage it myself. That was so stupid. That was so dumb, because again, I don't have the discipline to say, hey, you should get out, or to hold people to the fire or raise rents, because it makes me nervous. But when a property management company does that day in and day out, I love it, and same thing with doing syndications, in multifamily. It's like, I don't have to deal with that crap. You guys can handle it all for me. I could be the passive investor and actually enjoy life. Like you guys talk about in your own video, right? Like, be able to have that freedom, and that freedom includes my own time and energy too.
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of people think about leveraging. They get so focused on leveraging money, like taking on debt. They're like, oh, I can get a great loan at, 75%, 80% LTV. And, my cash flow is there. But a lot of people forget about leveraging other things like time and somebody else's experience. If you're going to partner up with somebody that has been doing this for 20 years, you're leveraging all their mistakes they've made, all of their successes. And so as an investor, it's not just leveraging debt or money, it's leveraging other things. You can leverage other people's experience, other people's time, and things like that, and really use that to help you get where you're trying to go. So
that's why I trust people that do more value add type stuff in multifamily versus those that are banking on appreciation, right?
Yes.
Because again, like we were talking about before we went on the air, right near me is Provo, Utah. And I hear about syndicators kind of come out and doing commercial stuff out here, but it's not value add. It's purely banking on what they think the market's going to do, which to me is a big gamble and a dumb rookie mistake, and some of them are rookies. Some of them only been doing this a few years and they're trying to go huge on these massive commercial deals. And you don't want that. You want somebody who's, like you said, like very calculated, formulaic, they've got the checks and balances to say, hey, is there anything possible that could go wrong here? Let's ensure we get, one, profit, and cash flow. And then two, then if we get growth, great, that's gravy.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the value add reposition. It's a lot of built-in security in that model. And especially if it cash flows, and for us, it has cash flow from day one. So if it cash flows at closing and there's a big value add potential, it's an awesome business model. On here you have a either a tip or a strategy to get your investment to pay you twice. I need to know about that. Tell us about how do we get paid twice here? Yeah,
it's essential. And the funny thing is a lot of real estate investors don't know about it, or they maybe heard a little bit, but they get bad advice or bad, just bad hookups, right? So if you've ever heard like the infinite banking concept, right?
Yep.
Infinite banking, like the problem is with the traditional infinite bankers, like I bought an infinite banking policy from somebody who said, hey, Nelson Nash is the king, and they had me read the book, and buy into it. They said, yeah, the first 2 years you'll have no money, but after that, you'll start having money in this thing. And I remember I was a financial advisor. I remember asking the agent, I said, can I overfund this? Can I make this cheaper where I get a better return on it? His answer was, no, you can't. You'll make it taxable. So I said, well, I don't want that. Let's fund it the way it is. So those of you that don't know what infinite banking is, it's taking, there's always like the death insurance, life insurance, like this term insurance that we all know about, right? We buy it. It's like car insurance. There's that, but then there's other insurances that've got this kind of savings component inside of it, right? Like it's tax-free savings account you can grow inside as well. It's like buy term and invest the difference, but put together. Whole life is the way you go with this if you want to get this double dip effect. You can't do it with the universal life. Some people try to pitch that. It doesn't work. There is no double dip or double arbitrage, right? Where you can get the money paying you twice. But the problem is, again, it's not about like the company you use even. It's more about how it's set up. Because when I had it set up, it was like high cost. So when I hit the recession, I was now in the hole $1 million. I couldn't afford to pay the premiums. I had paid 25 grand into it and I had zero cash in there. So when I couldn't make the premium payment, I lost it. It was like the most expensive rip-off term insurance policy I could have ever bought, right? Well, years later, I started to realize over the years, I could have overfunded it. The guy lied to me because he wanted to make more commissions off of me, right? And in fact, he admitted it. When I knocked down every obstacle he had that he threw at me, I got him right down the route. He said, Chris, I can't afford to cut back my commissions. I was like, well, then you're not going to ever get me as a client or anybody else for that matter. So I started to devise ways to do that and design it to that point of perfection. So rather than taking 17 years to pay into it to break even, because here's what happens in normal whole life. Say you pay $10,000 a year into it. It takes you 17 years before you finally have $170,000. So it's like you pay into it like this, and then finally the cash catches up. You're like, yay. And then it starts passing, so where you actually make a positive return. Instead of waiting 17 years, you can do it in 5. You can condense that big time, save on the cost. But here's why you want to use this instead of just a savings account. Because one, the savings account earns you 0.0%, right? We know that. 2, they tax you on 0.0%. And when you use a savings account, the problem is when you go to invest, now the savings account's depleted, right? It's not paying you money anymore. Now you're making money on the real estate deal, but here you're not making money. The difference is if I do this with my life insurance instead, the thing is I can grow that cash. It's tax-free. It pays me at least a 4 or 5+% net rate of return, even after costs. So definitely earning more than 0.0%. And I can access it from day one. So I can get access to the cash just like a savings account. But here's the cool thing is I can use it like getting a home equity line of credit. You get a home equity line of credit, you pay interest to the bank. This is like a HELOC, that pays you interest, because I can get a line of credit against it. It's paying me interest. Well, I'm paying interest for it. Yeah. But it's like 3% while I'm making like 5+%. Right. So I'm already making a spread here on the money, and I'm making money on the real estate deal at the same time. So say I have 100 grand in here, I borrow 90 to go do a real estate deal. What ends up happening is now, yeah, I'm paying 3%, but I'm still earning that 5-6% tax free on all 100,000. Where if that were in a savings account, I pull out 90,000, I'm only left with 10, earning nothing. Right. But now I'm earning massive interest tax free, and it's protected from lawsuits of creditors in this account. It's compounding while I'm paying less in interest. So I'm earning money here, and I'm earning money in the real estate deal like I would have normally. So what ends up happening, usually whatever you're earning on the deal, say that you're a passive investor, you're earning 12% a year, right, on that deal. What ends up happening is now you add at least another 2 to 5% on top of it using this versus just using your savings or checking account. So it kind of becomes like a no-brainer once you get to use it. But again, you got to have it designed just right, because even somebody who claims infinite banking, a lot of times they're padding it where they get paid more in commissions. There's more costs, and you don't want that. You want the least cost possible, least death benefit with the maximum amount of cash you can get in there. And it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've went down that rabbit hole. I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet, but the infinite banking or dual asset strategy is definitely a powerful tool. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, our legislatures don't figure out a way to kill it in the next few years, but it's
well, that's a good thing. It's that they're a contract, so they're grandfathered. Even if they change the rules, they can't. Okay, good. Yeah, so I know the like the Roths, right? Like we have the Roths that are under threat, or the self-directed IRAs.
Yeah, self-directed. That's the big thing right now. A lot of my investors are like, "What am I going to do?" I'm like, "I don't know. Let's see how this plays out, and I'll ask some people smarter than me because they're on the chopping block right now."
I will say one word of warning though on the insurance, because you mentioned changes. There is a change, even though you're grandfathered. There is a change that if you wait till 2022, all the insurance companies were able to lobby during the last little emergency, end of 2020, when they passed a little emergency plan. Yeah, insurance companies got it to where now, starting 2022, any policies you buy after that point, the guarantee, which right now is 4%, drops down to 2%.
Oh, really?
So now, even though I use companies that they've always paid more than the guarantee for over 100 years straight, even through recessions, depressions, everything else, right? Still, if you get it after 2022, that comes down to 2% guarantee versus a 4% guarantee. So if you get it in 2021, you're fine. It doesn't change on you at all. Like you're grandfathered in just as if nothing had changed. But if you wait till 2022, it will change on you a little bit that way.
Gotcha. Well, it's October 2021. So we'll get on this.
We got a few months still.
Yeah. I guess the last question I have on this, and we can switch gears again, is, and I guess it's more for my personal education or clarity on this. So when you take, because I've heard this both ways, when you take a loan out against your policy, the interest you pay is to you, right? Because you're writing a loan to you, say if it's a 3 or 5% loan, whatever it is, that 3 or 5% is going to you. So I've heard it that way. And then I've also heard about, a different way of setting it up is you're using it almost as collateral, where the full balance, and I think that's what you might be talking about, where the full balance, like say you have 200,000 in there, like you're not taking a loan out of the 200,000, you're taking a collateral against the 200,000. So that interest is going to a bank, but you're still earning interest on the full 200,000. So
yeah. The latter is true. The former is actually marketing speak, and it's complete half truth, right?
Okay.
That's one thing I hate about the guys in the insurance industry, right? I mean, even though I'm insurance licensed for the last almost 20 years, right? But I hate the fact that they try to teach it like, oh, you pay yourself. That's bull crap. Even if you pay the insurance company, right? They still act as the bank. You're still paying them interest.
Yeah.
But what they're trying to say is, say you borrow 100 grand, right? And then you're getting cash flow, say just 10% a year. So you get paid 10,000 a year. See, what they'll say is, we'll take that 10,000 returns you made and you pay that back in. Kind of like the whole velocity banking strategy. When people use their HELOC, they run it up to invest, and then they use all the cash flow to pay it down, and then they run it up again. Same exact strategy. But again, this one pays you interest where a HELOC does not. And the banks, unfortunately, will cut lines of credit. So you don't want to be using that velocity banking strategy anyways. I just max out my HELOC and leave it maxed, so they can't cut back on me, right? So this is different with the life insurance. Life insurance, yeah, you're paying back, you're paying interest to them, but you're paying down the principal on the loan too. So yeah, you're paying yourself, But just know the interest is being charged, whether it's to the insurance company or a private bank. Like I just talked to a bank yesterday where I can get I have a bank line of credit right now of 3.25, but I found another bank that offers it for 3%. And even when the rates go up, it's like prime minus 1%. So I'm like, all right, let's do this. Like that's better than paying 5% to the insurance company. So that's the key, right? You are paying interest to somebody, but here's the difference. When you pay your money, your returns towards that line of credit, if you run the numbers, just like you do like paying a car loan, right? You're not paying compound interest. That's the thing. There's two different types of interest. There's compounding interest in savings, and there's simple interest on a loan. They don't act the same. Here's the crazy thing. If you want to, say you get a 5-year car loan, if you want to beat an interest rate on that loan, say that the loan on that car is 3%, but you say, you know what? I could pay it in cash to pay this car all in full on cash. Well, what if I just save my money or invest it somewhere? Can I beat the interest on it? Most people think you just have to beat 3%, right? Because, well, if I want to beat 3% car loan, I need to beat 3%. That's not true. You only have to earn 1.5% in an account that compounds over 5 years to match the interest rate of 3% on a car loan. Because as you pay down the loan, the interest goes down or compound interest goes up. They're not the same. So same thing with a mortgage. If you've got a 4% mortgage right now, right? Or really most people probably have got down to about 3%. It's even less than that over 30 years. You only need to earn about a 3% mortgage, roughly about 1.35, 1.4% return. You could do that in the crappiest CDs out there right now, right? You could do that right now, or you could even go and invest it. So the compounding interest that you can make way bigger than the simple interest on the loan. That is the key that makes it work with life insurance, because you're paying simple interest on that loan. You take the cash flow, pay it back in. Even if you're paying the same rate as what you were earning on the life insurance, you would still win on the compounding side versus the simple interest, right? So that's why when I talk about I'm getting 3%, that compound versus simple interest is even more magnified. It's not just 3% I'm earning. I'm really earning more like 7 or 8% on that money.
That's awesome. Wow. Speechless. Very educational. I was just trying to keep up with you there. That was really good stuff.
That's where I need to show numbers instead, right? I can't just talk it out. But I do have videos I've done on that compound versus simple interest. It's pretty cool. You'll never be afraid of debt again, if you understand that concept.
No, it's absolutely good. That's awesome. Yeah, I know the velocity with the HELOCs and paying down your mortgage with that. I'm going to be doing it here on my primary residence here in the next year or so. So very excited to do that. But yeah, that's some powerful stuff. So switching gears here, what are some of the obstacles that you faced as your journey the first time? Well, we already talked about the first time. So your second time or continuing to go forward, what are some of the obstacles that you faced and how did you overcome those? Yeah,
the second time around, there's a concept that's mentioned in the book, Good to Great, right? Called the Flywheel concept. If you've ever pedaled a bicycle, you already understand it, right? If you've ever, especially if it has different speeds on the bike, you start to pedal it. It's really hard to pedal, but then eventually it gets easier and easier. And then pretty soon you get momentum on your side and it makes it you can just fly, right? It's the same thing with investing too. The hardest part, you mentioned this earlier too, you said about the patience aspect, right? In the beginning, it's always like watching grass grow. It's so hard to do. One of the mistakes I made, even the second time around, is I wanted to take any extra cash I had in savings and use it somewhere. I had to use it. So I would try to pay off a debt, right? Or I'd try to go and invest it. I'd have to do something with it. And then of course, like clockwork, every time I use that money, even if it's to pay off a debt, naturally what happens? Something comes up where I need that money now. And now I'm scrambling trying to make the money. And so right about the time, about 2015, 2016, I finally saw the pattern, and it's funny because I was teaching people to do it, but I wasn't doing it myself, right? Saw the pattern and said, Chris, live what you preach. Don't just keep putting money to work. You can have money sitting around doing nothing, let it sit, just let it sit there in savings and be at peace with it. Have an emergency fund for freaking, for crying out loud, right? Let that sit there, and it's so hard to do, especially if you're just starting with investing. It's so hard to let money sit, but that's probably the best thing you could possibly do. Now, once you get there, you're like, okay, cool. Now I can start investing money. Now I've got a good little cash, reserve in case, I become a non-essential business, right? Because they want to shut things down again or whatever it might be. You want to have that protection. Having that peace of mind freed up it actually allows you to make more money too. You get more creative. You think smarter about your decisions when you invest or when you do business, decisions too. So you want to make sure you have that safety net, and then you start to invest. And even when you start to invest, like when I'll get a client, maybe they got a couple $100,000 they deploy, right? And they're like, I had somebody just email me today that said, hey, I have $200,000. I want to make at least 10%. I know it's aggressive. I'm like, 10% is a baseline. I want at least 10%. So that's easy. But he wants 20,000 a year, Well, okay, cool. Now you did it. You deployed your 200 grand, 20,000 a year. You're like, all right, my goal is 10,000 a month. I'm making 20,000 a year. That's not even 2,000 a month. Let's go, Well, yeah, you got to, try to find ways to keep saving, but taking that 20 grand and then reinvesting it the next year, that helps, right? Now it's slow because you're like, okay, I just reinvest 20 grand. Now I'm earning, 22,000 a year instead of 20,000. The next year is like 24,500 or whatever, right? Like it kind of builds gradually, but especially as especially when there's the growth aspect, there's appreciation. When you're buying real assets, you're not just gambling in the crappy stock market with mediocre returns and high risks. Then we get these things like around maybe year 5 to 7, there's payoffs and things that happen that might double your money. And then boom, the cash flow doubles too from what it started out to be. And so a lot of times we're doing that kind of planning and trying to create that anti-financial plan, right? We're trying to figure that out. It's always about, okay, you got to be patient. This is like watching grass grow, but just know that as you go, that momentum picks up to where it starts exponentially taking off. But it might be 3 to 5 to 7 years before you really start to see it pick up a lot of speed.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, the analogy we use in our company here is like a Ferris wheel or a conveyor belt. So those first couple of years as you're, accumulating assets, and you're just in this growth phase, for us, we might be putting 50K in like each deal we do. And so, okay, 50, and we're earning some returns on that. We're earning the cash flow as that's coming in. But we're stacking them up. So 50K, 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 all the way out. And then 10 deals, we got all of our money deployed. But then that Ferris wheel starts coming back around. Now those first deals we did, 3, 4, 5 years ago, they start coming around for disposition and exit. And all of a sudden that 50K, you get a check for, 120K, and you're like, okay. And then you take a little bit off for yourself, maybe go on vacation and now you put 100K to work, throw it back out on that conveyor belt. And that's when you start really hitting that, like that upward, exponential growth of that curve is when that conveyor belt starts coming back around after that first accumulation kind of phase, that buildup phase. And that's kind of where we're at as a company, is we're coming around that the first deals we did in 2017 and 18, like they're all coming up for exit. And now we're seeing, what appreciation did, what our, the proper execution of our business plan did for the valuations of these properties. And we're like, holy crap, this is going to be insane. Like going into 2022, all the lessons we learned on the smaller properties, now we're going to be liquid again with all of our new profits here, with a much more experience, much more knowledge, ready to deploy out into the system again, to the streets again. But yeah, that's our analogies, that conveyor belt or that Ferris wheel, it's going to be really slow the first couple of years as you're deploying. But then next thing you know, like 2-3 years in, you have a full portfolio of real estate, cash flowing real estate that's, appreciating or being forced appreciated, and it's in different markets. So you have a diversity there. It's going to be great. So absolutely. Right. I'm full on board with what you preach.
Yeah. I mean, it's a cool thing you start to see. I mean, it's been nice to see the appreciation lately, but again, you want to look at that as the gravy on top, right? Because it's a nice surprise. I mean, like I bought a turnkey rental about 3.5 years ago. And it appreciated now 70 grand more than what I bought it for. But even without the 70 grand, I still would have had about a 40% rate of return over the last 3 years, or maybe even higher than that, almost 50% over these last 3.5 years. I'm not going to sneeze at that, especially because I took that money all tax free, right? Because it's in real estate, like you're writing off with all the depreciation and everything. I love that. There's even people are like, well, yeah, but in the last 3 years though, Chris, the market's doubled. You could have doubled your money in the market. I'm like, yeah, but the thing is I'll pay taxes on it. And who's to say that's not going to come crashing down 30, 40% in the next few years? Like, you don't really have anything until you cash it out, right? Yes. Where the cash flow from my rentals, that's already pocketed. I already pocketed that 40, 50%. It's mine. I've already pocketed it and reinvested it to buy more assets. That's a big key difference that I don't think people really see and realize, that when you're playing that space, no one can touch you in the real estate space. I'm sorry. I don't care. I used to do stock and options trading. At best, if you were an amazing stock or options trader, at best, you might make 20, 25% a year and then pay taxes, right?
Yeah. Your 30% or whatever it is for short-term capital gains.
Exactly. Right. You're losing some of that money anyway. So maybe you walk away with maybe 15% or so net. But the problem is that, I've got a guy that actually teaches people how to trade options. And he came to me. Why? Because he's like, Chris, I do options and I only manage them about half hour to an hour a day, but I have to keep looking at it every freaking day. He's like, I don't have passive income. How do I get that? I want to get in real estate. I want to do that kind of stuff where it's more passive. He didn't want to be an active investor, but a passive investor. I'm like, you could do that. And dude, you'll probably make more than your freaking options. Even though you're training people how to do this, you'll probably make more money over here than you will over there. And it's true. I mean, it's been true. So that's the thing. It's like, this is an amazing space to be in. And if you accept that, man, you will make yourself millions upon millions of dollars more than believing the mediocre average advice that everybody's given from the Dave Ramseys of the world, that now people are just broke, maybe middle class, right? Yeah. That's all people are right now.
Yeah. And it goes to your anti-financial advisor. It's like, that was really waking up, sitting across there. And I found out, I guess I'm fortunate enough to kind of see through the crap very early on. I think it was like 22 or 23. I was at one of the bigger name financial advisors and sitting across there. And, I just had my first daughter and I'm like, I'm going to do the smart thing. I'm going to set up a 529 and all this stuff and a Roth IRA outside of the TSP, which is the military's version of a 401k. Yeah. And was setting it all up. And then I'm looking through like the funds that they push. And I'm looking at it, just look, these are the aggressive ones and all this stuff, and going off like the SP 500 indexes and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, these are like 8% returns, and you're going to take 3 of them. Like at the end of the year, like this is crap. Like this is 5%. Like that's a good year. And I don't get to touch it. If I do it, I get penalized. All the penalties if I ever touch it, prematurely. And so we did it for about a year. And then after that, that's when I started really heavily on the self-education, finding things like the Rich Dad Poor Dads and those type of books out there. And just like, I immediately just closed everything down, liquidated, paid the penalties. And I think I made my money back. Like I broke even in like 9 months of like all the penalties I paid once I took everything out and went into real estate. And that was, I don't know how many years ago now, probably close to 9 years ago now. So obviously many multiples over what I would have if I would have just stayed in those, cornerstone funds or whatever crap. Like it was bad, but I'm lucky I fortunate enough to see the light very early on in my investing career.
You just have to look at common sense. If you just start getting, turn your mind away from what everybody's always taught you, because here's the key distinction. Like people will tell me sometimes, they'll say, I'm a conservative investor, right? That's why I don't do this stuff. That's why I have my money in mutual funds. And I'll say, well, I look at conservative as being like low risk. So why are you going in a place that's high risk with mediocre returns? Like that's not conservative. You're not a conservative investor. What you really are is a comfortable saver, right? You're comfortable because everybody else is doing it and you think that's a safe way to go. But the problem is it's 100% guaranteed that it will fail. And I'll tell you, I ran the numbers even as a financial advisor. That's why I had to leave. I was like, I can't run these numbers and make them work unless you want to live like a pauper in retirement. Yes. Which I've never met anybody who's like, I just want to live dirt cheap. I don't want to do anything in retirement. I just want to sit on my front porch on a swing. You don't see that. I don't see people saying that. I see people saying, I want to have time with my family. I want to live life while I'm still young, while I still can, when I still have a body that works, things like that. People want freedom. They don't want to sit on their front porch and die a slow death on ramen noodles, or maybe it's a quick death if it's ramen noodles. Yeah. But that's the thing. It's like, you gotta look past that stuff. And so, you are very fortunate to see it early. I'll tell you, I had a lady who she's in her 50s right now. Her Morgan Stanley advisor, she went to call him because she's like, you know what? I think I need to take this $1 million out of this IRA and move it over and self-direct it. And she said her Morgan Stanley advisor, they had a quarterly meeting recently. And he said that she is so far year to date made a 4% rate of return. 4. Now, this is after the market now is hitting pretty close to all-time highs still, around 16%. Yeah. So he's getting 4. She's like, oh man, like, where's all that money going? And he's like, well, you have a lot in bonds. You're doing this and this and this. And then she went to call him up to say, hey, I need to move this money over. And the receptionist said, oh, I'm sorry, he's out golfing in Scotland. And she's like, there's where my money went. There's where my returns all went. Get that money out now. And that's the thing, is like, you got to control your own money and your own freedom. And that's where freedom really begins, when you take control of it and take ownership and responsibility of your own money.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Well, we're running short on time here. Let's keep going. You want any last words before we head into the fire round?
Yeah, I would just say this, is that, there's way more hope than you probably realize. It's probably way easier to get out of the rat race than what you're currently seeing in your mind right now. It just requires a different shift in perspective to be able to see it and work those numbers different.
Absolutely. The paradigm shift is, I stole from Stephen Covey, but that's my coined phrase that I try to help people have that paradigm shift when it comes to their financial freedom. So I couldn't agree more. All right, the fire round. So same questions that we ask everybody, and we'll ask you the same one. So right off the bat here, what is your favorite book that you recommend other than Rich Dad Poor Dad?
I was just say, other than Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? I would say the favorite book, the one that just popped in my head, which is kind of weird. I have lots of favorite books, I guess, but the one that popped in my head that maybe I'm feeling for this audience would be, if you haven't read it or you haven't read it in a long time, read The Richest Man in Babylon.
Yes.
Because I just, my wife made me reread that one. I was like, oh yeah, it was an okay book. But when I reread it, I realized there's so many wise principles of investing and saving and everything in there that you got to take to heart, even if it's in a weird story format.
Your where we started this conversation is get back to your fundamentals, right? And that's what that book is about, is very much just the fundamentals of ensuring that you hit financial freedom, not just gambling and hope you get lucky. It's an outstanding book for that,
for sure.
And the Audible is good too. I like the Audible because they do the voices, and it's like RCAT and all that. And I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it, but it's I like the Audible version of that book. Sure. All right. So what is your superpower? My superpower is, if I were to sum it up, it's basically teaching. I'm a teacher, right? Like, and that's where my passion lies too, is that I can teach things in a very simple way, in a different way than most people will often hear it, right? They'll get a different perspective from it. So really being a teacher has been my superpower, teaching it simply. Got it. Being a teacher. Good stuff. So, and that goes into all the stuff that you do on the side here, which we'll get to in a second. But what is the biggest lesson you've learned over your career? The biggest lesson is persistence applied properly wins. Right. I got to put that little disclaimer in there. There's always exceptions. Like you could persist doing the wrong thing and screw it up and never see success. But when principles are properly applied with persistence, you win. Got it. Love it. For the busy working professional who is working towards financial freedom, what advice do you have for them? Get your money out of prison, right? Get your money unlocked out of the stock market. Again, we're not recommending you buy, sell stocks or anything like that. But get your money out of places like the savings account, even. Like, is it sitting in savings doing nothing? Is it sitting in the stock market not really doing anything? Is it sitting in equity in your house that could be doing something more, right? Get their money out of prison so then you can put it to work for you. So you don't have to keep working so much for your money. Got it. Yep. Absolutely. That's how you get out of the rat race, is get your money working for you. So as we wrap up here, for our listeners that want to reach out to you, like I said, I was going to come back to this as you're a teacher. I think you have something for that. So how could our listeners reach out to you, and what other programs or things do you have that you offer? Yeah, you do it two ways. One, you go to our website, moneyripples.com, and you can learn about a bunch of stuff there. Or we even have a program for those people that are just starting out with investing, like an online training program. We even do one-on-one consulting as well for those that have at least a few $100,000 of cash to deploy, right? And then we've got our podcast, The Chris Miles Money Show. You can find on iTunes, YouTube, or anywhere. We're just hitting, actually tomorrow, episode 550. So yeah, wow. Definitely feel free to check that out. Good stuff. 550. I think this is going to be episode like 80. So we're almost caught up to you. Good stuff. Well, it was an outstanding show. definitely tons of information nuggets in this show. And anybody listens, go back, listen to it again, and we'll see you next time. So thanks, Chris.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And that was an awesome show. Definitely appreciate Chris and everything he brought to our listeners here in our community. If you're interested in learning more about passive investing, check out our website, tricityequitygroup.com, to get in some passive deals, multifamily deals, scale your company, scale your business, reach your financial goals. Definitely check out what we do and what we have to offer, tricityequitygroup.com. If you want to connect with like-minded investors, check out our Facebook group, Honolulu Multifamily and More. We have about 1,000 people in that community there, which is all about helping each other out, sharing resources, sharing best practices, lessons learned, so we can all grow together. Also, this podcast here, check out our other episodes, subscribe to it if you haven't, share it with your friends and family or anybody that you think would be interested in multifamily investing or any of the other things we talk about on here, just financial independence, gaining it, and achieving and striving for financial independence. And then also, we're super excited to share our upcoming conference, our first conference here, and it's the Hawaii Millionaire Mindset Conference, the Blueprint. It's going to be on the island of Oahu in Ko'olina, Four Seasons. It's a phenomenal A-class resort. Nothing, no expenses spared on this. It's going to be top-notch, outstanding conference there. Only about 400 people can fit in our conference room. We got things set up like you can go golfing excursions. You can do the Paradise Luau's. So many things that you can do, and it's in the resort of Four Seasons, have the lagoons there. So check it out, Ko'olina, Four Seasons on Oahu. This event is going to be July 21st through 24th, 2022. So we're starting really early to get everybody out there so they can mark their calendars, get their flight arrangements ready and everything like that. And you can get through hotels. We have discounted hotels through our website where you can register at and sign up for all those excursions, those other events, like golf scrambles and all those things. It's going to be a 2-day event, all about scaling multifamily or scaling real estate. On first day, second day is going to be all about scaling business, growing businesses, and have the idea is to have your businesses buy your assets and you live off the cash flow that your assets produce. So it is a very phenomenal business plan. That's what we're all striving for here at Tri-City Equity Group and Bandit Brothers. So definitely check out what we have to offer. It's going to be an awesome event. You can register at millionairesmindsetblueprint.com, the millionairesmindsetblueprint.com. All right, we'll see you next time.